What's up everybody, welcome back to my channel, hope you guys are doing well. Today I have another exciting video for you specifically covering the new leaks detailing both specs and the design of the iPhone 12 and the iPhone 12 Pro lineups that will be released this fall. Now as always, with leaks regarding new upcoming Apple products, these rumors have to be taken with a grain of salt, so just keep that in mind. But that said, I will be focusing on the amazing new design along with the specs and pricing of every iPhone that is expected to be released this fall. Now before we get into the details, be sure to click that like button and subscribe with notifications on for more content like this. I greatly appreciate it, and it helps YouTube push out my video to as many people as possible, so thank you for the support. I upload videos every Tuesday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so be sure to stick around for the latest Apple news, rumors, and reviews. Also be sure to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and my other social media below the video to see other exclusive updates. So jumping right into the Apple iPhone 12 leaks, I want to start by detailing where these leaks actually came from and how trustworthy they are, as I feel that's relatively important in terms of how accurate the details of the leaks are in general. So right up front, these leaks came from a recent leaker named Jon Prosser, or Prosser, sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name, John. Now although Jon hasn't been well known in the past, a recent slew of leaks has made him gain a little bit of ground in the field of Apple leaks and rumors. Recently, being a tech analyst, Jon had his nose right up in the latest of the rumor mill when it came to some recent Apple product releases, and sure enough, he was spot on accurate, so he gained much credibility among the tech community. As many of you know, in the past couple of months, Apple has quietly released a slew of products, despite the fact that much of the world, including the USA, has been in lockdown due to COVID-19. In March, Apple refreshed both the iPad Pro with a new camera system, processor, and the much-needed Magic Keyboard accessory, adding trackpad support as well. They also refreshed the MacBook Air, updating the specs and just making it a better overall machine. Now, Jon Prosser came into the picture for both of these releases, tweeting out on his Twitter page, quote, "Probably the weirdest timing ever, but new Apple products this week." Sure enough, a few days later, 3 days to be exact, the new iPad Pro and MacBook Air arrived. Now, maybe he was lucky, you might be thinking, but following up these leaks on March 31st, Jon tweeted that the iPhone 9, the rumored name for the new iPhone SE, would be arriving on April 15th and shipping on April 22nd. Notably, he was one of the only ones on the internet to predict this release, and sure enough, we now have the new iPhone SE, which was released a few weeks ago. Lastly, this month in May, we received a refresh of the MacBook Pro 13-inch model, which was a bit easier to predict knowing that Apple hadn't updated those machines in a while, but Jon also tweeted out about that device, and sure enough, we did receive that update as well from Apple, which I myself was very interested in. So really, for somebody who was relatively unknown and obscure prior to these last few Apple product releases, Jon has certainly gained some traction in the Apple leaks and rumor world. He even went so far as saying that Apple didn't really like him on his Twitter page, which of course Apple certainly doesn't like leakers, as they like to keep their releases on lockdown as long as possible to build hype, which reminds me of the days of the iPhone 4. In my view, because of Jon's recent track record, I view him as an accurate source for some of this information, at least for the short term going forward with Apple leaks. Because of this credibility, I was extremely interested to hear what he had to say about the iPhone 12 and iPhone 12 Pro, which he did touch on this past week. Not only did he touch on these two devices, but he touched on the entire iPhone lineup that Apple is expected to release this fall. Now, WWDC is only next month, and we obviously have some time to see what Apple will release here, so these rumors could change, but there's a lot to cover here. Credit to Jon for doing much research and getting his hands on a lot of this information. So for the fall, many rumors have detailed Apple offering up to 4 different models of the iPhone across the iPhone 12 and iPhone 12 Pro lineups, all offering different display sizes and features similar to what they have done in the past with multiple device releases at once. The leaks actually detail how there will be 2 iPhone 12 models as well as 2 Pro iPhone 12 models, both of the larger models in each lineup being a Max version. So let's jump into the specs of the iPhone 12. To begin with the standard iPhone 12s, the base model will have a 5.4-inch display and the Max model will have a 6.1-inch display, both OLED Super Retina displays, which will be different than the Pro models, which will have 6.1-inch and 6.7-inch OLED displays with 10-bit color depth respectively. Now, a point of debate among these new Pro models is whether or not they will have the ProMotion display capabilities up to 120 Hz refresh rate that currently the iPad Pro models have in 2018 and the 2020 models. Now, my personal opinion, because this is a major component in the iPad Pros that probably most directly impacts the fluidity and smoothness of the iPads, I can see Apple bringing the displays over to certain models of the iPhone 12. Cost most likely wouldn't be an issue in my opinion, as the displays of the current iPad Pros are much larger and moving this technology over to the iPhones wouldn't be nearly as expensive in my opinion. That said, I can also see Apple limiting this feature to the two bigger Max iPhones, both as a marketing technique to sell the upper level devices and also because they typically hold out on one or two of the best features for their more expensive models, as they did with the iPhone 11 Pro with a camera system. Now, for comparison purposes, the iPhone 11 Pro currently has a 5.8-inch display, while the Pro Max has a 6.5-inch display, and the iPhone 11 has a 6.1-inch display. So it seems that the Max models are getting a bump up in the display sizes, but the base model will actually be a little bit smaller. Personally, I have the iPhone X here that I use as my daily driver, and I don't mind the screen size being a little bit smaller there, but obviously everyone has their own preferences. I don't think the display sizes will really be the main selling point here, however, as the ProMotion technology, if included, will drastically change the snappiness and performance of the device, so I'm sure Apple will choose to focus on that as opposed to the sizes of the screens themselves. In terms of specs, the iPhone 12 and the 12 Max will come with 4GB of RAM, 128GB of storage, upgradable to 256GB, and a dual camera system. Now, the body will also come in aluminum, and this is to be expected. Now, the iPhone 12 Pro and Pro Max will both come with 6GB of RAM, 128GB of storage, upgradable all the way to 512GB, and a triple camera system with LiDAR detection, just like on the iPad Pro. They will also have stainless steel bodies, which surprisingly the iPhone X actually got, and they subsequently didn't include on some of the newer iPhone models after the iPhone X. Each iPhone 12 will have an A14 Bionic chip as well, which is incremental and that's to be expected. Now, the specs on the Pro models are very similar to the iPad Pros, and I expect many of these updates to happen, specifically with the internals, and the only question mark that I can really see is in regard to the ProMotion display technology. We may or may not get that, and it's also up in the air as to whether or not they will include that in all the devices or just the Max models. My guess is just the Max models, but we'll have to wait and see. Getting a little more into the design, I have seen mock-ups that really detail how the iPhone 12 will look, and it seems to have a very similar design to the iPad Pros that were just released earlier this year and in 2018. I personally like this design. It reminds me a lot of the iPhone 4 and the iPhone 5 days, which were some of the first iPhones that I actually got started with on this YouTube channel, and I personally think the new devices will be great to hold and interact with on a day-to-day basis. Something interesting that may arise is whether or not these iPhones will bend. I know that the iPhone 6 in the past, as well as the iPad Pros, have had issues with bending, but honestly this hasn't been too much of a big deal to me because my devices I've kept in pretty good shape, and most people with everyday use are not going to be putting enough pressure on their devices to the point where they may bend. And also, if you're going to try to bend your device, you probably wouldn't or shouldn't be buying it in the first place, so there is that. I'm not too worried about the bending, and I think the design will be well worth it, especially if you like the design of the iPad Pro or the old design of the iPhone 4 and the iPhone 5. Obviously, except for the size differences. Now, the OLED displays are great and definitely save battery, as I currently still use the iPhone X as my daily driver, which does have an OLED display, and I very much enjoy seeing the true colors that the OLED display shows, along with saving a little bit of extra battery in the process versus an LCD display. Moving into some of the other design features, along with new features in this device, the devices will have a square camera bump similar to the iPad Pro that we currently have, and will include LiDAR. Now, we didn't get too much info about the cameras in these iPhones thus far in the leaks, but all of the iPhone 11s have both 12 megapixel front and back cameras, so I expect this to be a minimum with the iPhone 12s. To be honest, I don't see them updating the cameras really too much. The cameras already on the iPhone 11 are great, but this is a feature that we don't have much info on just yet, so I'll have to update you as I get more information over the next couple of weeks. The iPhone 11 has great cameras, so I expect the same with the iPhone 12. Apple has great optimization with the cameras, so that's really nothing to worry about. The iPhone 12 is also expected to be the first iPhone with 5G connectivity, and I also expect Apple to bring Wi-Fi 6 along with updated Bluetooth to all of these devices. A smaller change that may occur will be a smaller notch at the top of the design, which has been controversial for many years ever since its release with the iPhone X, so it would be nice to see if Apple could just remove it altogether along with totally flat bezels along the screen. I think that would look great. Now, there are a few features that may or may not get included, which would be nice to haves, but we just aren't sure based on the leaks. One of them is a Touch ID sensor in the display, which would give an additional way to interact interact with the device outside of Face ID, and the second would be USB-C connection support. Now, while I would enjoy Touch ID on the iPhone 12, I don't really see Apple including the Touch ID. That said, I do actually see them changing to the USB-C connectors just like on the iPad Pro, at least on the upper level devices, but I personally don't see them including Touch ID in the process. USB-C would match the lineup with the iPad Pro on select models, and Apple seems to be moving away from Touch ID, so that would be a long shot in my view. That said, if we were to get either of these, it would be a nice addition, and Touch ID would just be an extremely nice to have item on the iPhone 12. I have no problem with Face ID, but I would enjoy using both of them in tandem. Now, the pricing of this lineup is where the leaks get a little interesting. Currently, the iPhone 11 starts at $699 USD, where the iPhone 11 Pro starts at $999 USD, and the Pro Max starts at $1099 USD. Jon's leaks detail a slightly different pricing lineup where the iPhone 12 will retail for $649 USD for the 128GB version. The Pro models seem to be staying at the same pricing levels, with the $999 USD for the iPhone 12 Pro and the $1099 USD for the Pro Max. But keep in mind that you will be getting double the storage and a potential for a new design, ProMotion display technology, and a few other additional new features, giving you much more bang for your buck. So it is nice to see Apple slightly reducing the price of the iPhones there, but obviously these are just leaks and we have to take them with a grain of salt. Now, the iPhone 12 release date. The iPhone 11 debuted at an Apple event in September of 2019, and so the iPhone 12 is expected to come in September of 2020, of course. Now, this is if Apple is able to stay on track despite the COVID-19 virus. I do see Apple staying on track as they have released a handful of products during the breakouts earlier in 2020, but if they do delay these devices, I would expect something similar to what they did with the iPhone 10, which is revealing the device in September and then actually shipping later in the year in October or November. The iPhone 10 shipped on November 3rd, so I can see them doing the same thing, especially for some of the higher tier models. Ultimately, I do expect we will at least see some sort of iPhone in the fall, but again, that depends on the COVID-19 outbreaks and what Apple is actually able to accomplish. Personally, I think that the iPhone 12 will be an amazing update, and I think I am going to be upgrading myself, or at least doing reviews and overviews here on my channel. But I'm interested in hearing what you have to say about the iPhone 12 and what your thoughts are. So definitely leave me your thoughts on the iPhone 12 in the comments. I'd be really interested to hear what you think about this device or what your questions may be. I'm happy to answer all of your comments in the meantime, and I will be posting more leaks and rumors as I hear them, so definitely stay tuned for future videos. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss my next upload. I upload every Tuesday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and your support is greatly appreciated. I will have my Twitter, Instagram, and social media profiles all down in the description of the video if you'd like to see what I'm up to in the meantime, so drop a follow there. I greatly appreciate it, and as always, guys, I'll catch you in the next one with more Apple goodness. Peace.